Hello, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Scott, coming to you from Toronto, where today it is too cold for shorts and too hot for pants.
And I'm Andy, coming to you from the United Kingdom, where the weather is still very confused.
Same place then, are we?
Yeah.
We're
coming up for midsummer now in a couple of days, so it's it's bound to be raining and cloudy and boiling hot all at the same time.
Exactly. Like the furnace in my house actually came on this morning, and I was like, "What is happening?" I just hadn't bothered to turn it off yet, and the temperature dropped and it kicked on, and I was like, "No, This is not good." This is not the weather report. This is the Tea and Timbits podcast, global perspectives on business development to help you prosper. It is the month of June, despite what the weather wants to say about it, and we are talking about crisis management. And today we're going to get into early warning signals. And I was going to keep going on that theme, but you should tell a story before we get into our topic, Andy. What do you got for us?
Oh, I'm happy to do that. It's a story that I wanted to tell because it was very relevant to last week's episode, where we were talking about the difference between urgency and emotions, and it was a scenario that we had actually fairly recently, and I just remembered after the episode that it was worthwhile mentioning it on this week's show, because we had a client. They were negotiating it was about £5 million deal, so it wasn't huge, but it wasn't insignificant either. And it was I think 10 p.m. on a Friday night, and their legal team sent out a message to the sales team saying, "Oh, we've got to have this, we've got to have that," and there was like all these legal red lines suddenly coming up in the contract. And of course, then it meant the lead salesperson started panicking, going, "Oh my God, we're going to lose this deal. It's not going to happen," and all these sort of things, and caused a complete sort of emotional response to this situation, because they'd received it late on a Friday night. They were panicked. They felt they had to do it straight away. They started calling around all the executives and telling them to pick it up and start responding to it, because otherwise they were going to lose the deal and it wasn't going to get signed on Monday, and all these other things. Then, fortunately, the commercial director, who had been woken up because had an early night, having been traveling all week, and looked at it and went, "Yeah, but the contract doesn't need to be signed till Thursday." So they had the whole week ahead of them to look at everything. It just happened to be that the legal team had sent this over, and they'd processed it, and they'd sent it over on the Friday night, because that was
they wanted to get on their weekend.
They wanted to send it before the end of the week and before the weekend. So there was no real emotion on it from the customer side, but from the receiving side, they responded emotionally to it, rather and perceived that there was an urgency from the customer, or from the prospective customer. But there wasn't. And in the end, they were able to address all of those during normal working hours, and they managed to secure the contract. Everything was signed on time, and everyone was happy. So it worked out very well. But again, it was this emotional reaction with perceived urgency. And fortunately, the commercial director, I'd like to say he'd been listening to our episode, but it was before we recorded the episode. So, it was a real scenario, a real live scenario of what we actually were talking about last week.
There you go.
I thought I'd share that story.
It's funny because I got two emails on last Friday with contract feedback, and it threw me off on like going in. I was like, and I hate this kind of stuff. It's just like, really, like, oh, come on, can't we just agree to be good people and good companies and not screw each other over and apologize for our mistakes and do what's best for everybody? And then there's wording that gets dissected in a contract that just drives me nuts. Anyway, it took perhaps a stiff drink and another deep breath, and then I was after it, and then I responded yesterday morning, or whatever it was. I'm losing track of days now. In a much more clear-headed way, not mistaking urgency with emotion. And in one case, they're like, "Okay, all right, no problem. We'll use your contract. We just thought we'd ask." Like, okay. Anyway, good sharing. Thanks, Andy. So back to our theme for the month and our topic for today: crisis management and early warning signals.
Early warning signals. Okay.
Yeah, I think we had this particular topic in for this week because in the realm of crisis management, you need to do two things, right? Like you need to address the crisis head on. You need to manage it, but I think you also need to try and avoid these things from happening in the first place. And so there's a little bit of like do better next time, which isn't very helpful when you're in a crisis. Except it can be very helpful to not end up there time and time again. Which, but like some of my clients, some of my friends, some of my colleagues, I'm like they just operate in this world constantly, and I'm like that must be freaking exhausting. Sure enough, like they have higher turnover, they have, a little bit more trouble sort of maintaining clients. So anyway, Andy, to avoid all of that, what kind of early warning signals do you think even exist in order to head off something becoming a crisis?
I would say certainly, trying to keep this on a sales perspective, simple things like pipeline stagnation, reduced engagement from the buyers or the prospects. Silence from internal stakeholders can sometimes be an issue as well, perhaps. Internal conversations being repeated. I've seen a lot of that. You keep having the same meeting over and over again, and
Right.
those can be challenging. When you start to see discounts being the thing that people are leading with.
This is a good list. I like the internal communication or the communication one.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the silence means nothing. And sometimes it means there's a crisis brewing. But I like what you said about sort of that like that's one end, but you said conversations repeating.
Yes, yeah.
Which
see that quite a bit.
Which I love. I never thought that wasn't on my list, but as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh, that is a sign that other people are hoping somebody else picks up the ball.
Exactly.
If I just keep repeating the problem or pointing this thing out, I'm not taking any accountability or ownership for it, but I told you so. So somebody definitely like listen, if you're the person doing that, like, come on, you can do better. If you're a leader or manager or somebody who has other accountabilities, sort of like that sales deal coming to fruition or that client satisfaction, you got to jump on that grenade.
Yeah. And another one as well that you've just inspired me about is that over reliance on just one or two big deals or clients.
Yeah.
If you're in that position as well, that's an early warning signal that your prospecting is definitely falling off and that you as an organization need to be doing something about that.
Absolutely. So yeah, pipeline visibility, pipeline health, working on the business, like working at you get a deal, you start working on the deal, you start nurturing the opportunity, and then you get it to a close, whether you won or lost. And then you're like, oh crap, now what? I've got nothing at the top of my funnel. So being able to make sure that you've got some sort of delineation of responsibility, time blocking for not putting all of your energy in one place, all the time kind of thing, absolutely needs to be sort of part of your management of this. So early warning signals, hey, like let's focus on the signal part there. Like if you don't have signal information, you can't do anything. You can't even see what might be going up early. You're going to be dealing with trailing indicators all day long, right? So what kind of dashboards, what kind of routines and structures do you have in place in order to get ahead of these things?
You just made me very happy by using the word dashboards because, of course, that gives a clue to exactly what we need. You need a commercial signals dashboard. That's what you need.
Yeah.
You got to track those metrics and, every element of it, the email open rates, as simple as that. Just, early basic prospecting stuff. Just looking at all of those aspects, that are at the earliest phase possible. I mean, what you often find as well is that companies who have displayed many of the things that I mentioned earlier, they also have this situation where they're forecasting, so you say you ask them,
Mm.
so what have you got in the pipeline, what have you got coming up, what do you expect to do this year? It's all very gut feeling. There's no substance to it. It's all sort of personality driven, I think. And it's it's very important as a leader of these teams and as any organization, no matter where you are in that organization, you've got to be engaging with the frontline teams, and you've got to be putting a bit of pressure on them,
Yeah.
really asking those questions and asking to break down and not just keeping that fluffy high level that salespeople are very good at communicating, but actually going into the numbers, actually going into the activities, actually asking them, what is it that we're not paying attention to that we should be?
So I've been writing down a few notes here as we've been talking in your riffing there, but it kind of comes back to the scenario we structured at the beginning of the conversation about like information being repeated in a meeting, right?
Mm-hmm,
So, and then talking about somebody taking accountability for the situation. Well, in a business development situation, in a client management situation, timelines, budget, accountability are all sort of critical elements to avoiding a crisis. And I think if we're going to, so we talk about business development in general, which is also about making sure that existing projects go well and client relationships are healthy and you get the renewals and the ongoing satisfaction and whatnot. But let's put it in a pure top of the funnel sales pipeline scenario. If you're starting an engagement, starting an opportunity discussion, and you don't establish timeline, don't establish certain parameters around, how you need this to go. I think that we're speaking to a B2B audience largely. I think it's even more critical. But when you ask something of the it often feels, especially in business development and sales, that you can't ask the prospect to take ownership for part of the process. But I completely disagree with that, right? And
completely.
and the high achievers, the high performers know this. I want to see that you're able to bring the right person onto the next call, that you're as committed to this scenario as we are. The information that's required for us to figure out the right solution, the most suitable product offering, depends on information and I'm not saying manufacture a scenario to try and test for accountability, but there are certainly situations where you need to assign responsibility and accountability. And if the other party is just showing up like, oh yeah, right, no, I haven't gotten to that yet, or I forgot and whatnot, then that's an early warning sign.
Yes, exactly that. And this is the funny thing as well. You'll often find that that the sales team will be reluctant to give the customer homework or give the customer or prospect tasks and give them something to work on, because they go, oh, but if we ask them to do that and they say no, then I'll lose the deal. Well, if they're going to say no, then you've already lost the deal, and now already. Or it's maybe not a red flag, but it's certainly a yellow flag that you need to be paying attention to. And
I mean, that's it, right?
Yeah.
Like how many times have you and I been in pipeline review meetings where we're just being fed information, and I'm like, you dig a little deeper, and it's like, yeah, but what did they actually say? What did they commit to? When are you going to get that? And when's the next call? Have you got it in your calendar? And then that kind of scrutiny is what a good leader will do to tell them how healthy the pipeline is and whether or not we are going to have a crisis down the road. Well, I'm not getting the right answers, that I need to have confidence in what's in the pipeline. Therefore, I don't trust it. We need to devalue it. I'm not going to take anything out, but I'm going to knock down the probability probably. Maybe I will, move things if they have been sitting in the same stage for too long. But the individual contributor as well, needs to pull their socks up and needs to increase the volume of opportunities at the top of the funnel.
Completely. I mean, just that ability to predict and preempt situations before
Mhm.
they happen is really, really good, because then it does lead into that ability to sort of prioritize what you should be focusing on. And just want to say one thing outside of the new business that we often
Mhm.
talk about is the thing with strategic accounts, like existing business. What I often see is, worst case scenario is that companies revisit those strategic, most important customers. They talk to them once a year, right,
Yeah.
about business. They'll go out and play golf and take them out for dinner and all that sort of stuff and have jollies with them, fine, but they won't actually talk about business until it's actually time to renew the contract. And this is where problems happen, and this is where that in itself is an early warning signal, of course,
Yeah.
is that if you're a strategic account manager or account director even, are out all the time doing lots of fun things with their client, spending time with the client, but not actually coming back with anything business related,
Yeah.
and they're not coming back with referrals, and maybe the invoices are a little bit delayed, or anything like that, you should be having business discussions with your strategic accounts on a monthly basis, not
Mhm.
quarterly, not yearly, not half yearly, monthly.
Yep. Yep. And don't look for confirmation bias. Like, be careful of confirmation bias. It's very often you're in a conversation and then you hone in on the one thing that they said that reinforces your optimism or what you think you can provide for them. If the whole like, God, I see that all the time. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but you ignored all the other information that they gave you, and you just picked up on, oh, they said that, they're out of soap. Well, yeah, but you missed the fact that they're renovating the bathroom. Like, whoa.
Wow.
Well, thank you, Andy. I think that's been a good discussion about early warning signals and how to spot them, how to put them in place in the first place, and how to make sure you don't disregard them. Always a pleasure. And if you are listening and would like more listening pleasure, you can go to tandtimbits.com for all of our back episodes and the best way to get in touch with you, which is still LinkedIn, because I still haven't figured out how to get into our email. Thanks, Andy. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Scott.